there was a philosopher, I think his name was Socrates, if I'm not mistaken it was Socrates, who eventually the government, the powers that be, shall we say, in the government of that day in ancient Greece, they came to Socrates and they suggested that he might want to do away with himself. They didn't want to have to do it themselves, so they suggested he might want to commit suicide for the good of all the nation. Why? Why was the government so anxious to have Socrates dead and gone? They said that he was corrupting the youth of Greece. He was corrupting the young people. And what was he doing? He was teaching them, he was teaching young people the facts of life, how the world works, to question government, question authority, question with the people around you. Don't just buy into anything because you're ignorant and ill-informed. Question everything. Begin to read and study on your own and begin to question powerful people, powerful governments. And so Socrates began causing young people to think too much. And eventually they had to get rid of him. He was too popular, so the government didn't want to kill him, so they just asked him to do it himself. So the same thing, the more we change, the more we stay the same. Nothing changes, and so there's nothing new under the sun. And so today, just recently, with the the rioting and revolution going on in China in Tiananmen Square, it was interesting that Henry Kissinger made this statement when this activity was going on in China, when young people were rising up against the government in Tiananmen Square. The news people asked Kissinger what he thought was going on. Why were these young people doing this? And he said, and his comment was that it was tape recordings, cassette tapes were the culprit in causing this uprising and revolution in China. And what he was saying was that young people here and from China who are living here in America, who were enjoying the fruitage of freedom and liberty and justice and education and knowledge, were making tapes, cassette tapes, and sending them back to their friends back home, to young people, their young friends back home, and their young friends back in China were reproducing those tapes. Everybody has a tape recorder, so they were reproducing tapes, and before you know it, all the kids in China were listening to cassette tapes about freedom, liberty, questioning authority, questioning your masters, and questioning who supposedly owns you, and question your decisions in life. And so basically education caused a revolution. So it was a revelation which brought a revolution. And it was all caused by young people sending each other cassette tapes. So the same thing we see, in China, we saw in ancient Greece, when the great philosopher was teaching young people how to think, and they were spreading that message to other young people. What happened? It caused a revolution. And if there's ever been a time in the human race, and the history of the human family on the earth, that we need an intellectual, spiritual renaissance. We don't need revolutions in the street. It's quite simple. All we actually need, the civilization on the earth needs, is a spiritual and intellectual renaissance. A time when people will begin to hold important knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, questioning authority, questioning the governmental system under which you labor. It's a very important point that knowledge is a basis for power. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have a two-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor. Before you put heavy, like printing presses and all that kind of thing, before you put any heavy weight on the second floor, go downstairs with a ladder and get a building inspector and go up through the ceiling tiles on the first floor and look at the foundation of the second floor to see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're going downstairs, you're going down under the foundation, and you're standing under the foundation to see if the foundation is going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're standing under what you're going to build on. That's where we get the word understanding. So unless you are able to go beneath the surface of any subject, you don't understand. And so it's time that you begin to understand the world you live in, how the government really works. It doesn't work the way you think it does. Banks do not loan money. There's a law in America that says no bank can loan money, period. That's the law. Now, how many people go to get a loan from a bank know that the law in America says no banks can loan money? How many people know that? So once you begin to understand that banks don't loan money, I mean, think about it. Just reason for a moment. Suppose I put my $100,000 of my money into a bank, and 2 days later you come in, want to buy a boat for $200,000 or $100,000, and the bank is going to give you my $100,000 to buy your boat. No possible way is that going to happen. Banks do not have the authority to take my money and give it to you. And if you don't pay, then what? I just lost my money because they gave you my money. That's not the way banks work. Banks do not loan money. The way it works is very simple. Suppose you're buying a $30,000 car, $50,000 car. That car, first of all, has to be appraised by a state-approved appraiser. So you have a government appraiser appraise the car for its value. And let's say it's $50,000. Therefore, the paperwork on which that paperwork which represents that $50,000 car is referred to in commerce and business as commercial paper. And that piece of paper represents $50,000 in business. So so what happens is if you decide you want to buy the car, the dealership sends the paper to the bank. So now the bank has a $50,000 worth of commercial paper. What the bank does is they open up a bank account in your name without you knowing it. All banks do this. They open up a bank account in your name. They sign your name on the bank account because you can't open a bank account without a signature. So they sign your name on a bank account and open up a bank account for you. But you don't know that. Then they take the $50,000 in commercial paper, which represents $50,000, and they put it into your account. So now you have a bank account in their bank with $50,000 in it. And then they take that bank account and they write a check on that for you. So the first check for the first $50,000 they write for you, and they sign it for you and give it to you so you can give it to the dealer. So you think that the bank has loaned you $50,000. No. The bank merely gave you credit on the commercial paper which they are holding. They are confirming that they have the $50,000 in the bank with the paper. They're holding the pink slip. Therefore, they will give you a credit of $50,000 based on your commercial paper. So they didn't give you anything. You gave them $50,000 on commercial paper. They just gave you a credit, and so that's the way it works. There is no money changing hands. Now let me give you another example that's even easier to understand. Suppose you were a painting contractor, and I hire you to paint my office, and you tell me it's going to cost $100 to paint my office. Well, the way it works in business, in commercial business, is that I agree to your bill of $100. So when you're through with the job, you come to me and you give me a bill. And the bill is for $100. The same thing if you go to Sears or any market or whatever and you buy something, they're going to give you a bill. You're expected to pay it. All right, so you as a painting contractor have painted my room. When you're through, you give me a bill. And the bill I read is $400. I reach in my wallet and I pull out a $100 bill and I give it to you. Now you have been paid because I gave you a $100 bill. No, I didn't pay you anything. I paid you nothing. You gave me a bill for $100. I reach in my wallet, I give you a bill for $100. It's called a $100 bill. So now you owe me $100. It's a bill. Look on the $100 bill, and at the top it says a Federal Reserve note. It's a bank note, meaning you now owe me $100. It's a bank note. And so if you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. So all we're doing is just exchanging bills. That's why banks are called banks of exchange. So we're just exchanging paper. Nobody has bought anything. And because of that, the law basically says in America, you cannot pay a bill. So understand, when you say that you've got a bill that you have to pay, you cannot pay a bill in America. That's the law. But you can discharge a debt. That's different. Discharging a debt is different from paying a bill. Since you didn't pay for anything, since you're using the Federal Reserve note and you're buying something, you did not pay for the bill. You didn't pay the bill. So therefore, whatever it is you're buying, you don't own. You don't own anything. It was just a bill of exchange. So they gave you something, you give them something. They give you something worth $100 bill, and I gave them a bill for $100. So the bottom line on the way commerce works is that nobody pays anyone, period. Therefore, in point of fact, by law, no one owns anything in America. No one. So that's why you don't own your home, you don't own your car. You know, and once you understand how the world works, it's an extraordinary story, a betrayal of the human family. Very, very interesting, dark stuff that we are not aware of. There's another law that says any official vehicle that is owned by the state, whatever state you happen to live in, the state has its own vehicles. And therefore, any state vehicle will have on the vehicle, I don't care what it is, a truck, car, motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It will have on the license or near the license, it will always have for official use only. A little sticker or a little print on the vehicle, whatever it is, and it will say for official use only. That means that this vehicle, whatever it is, 16-wheeler or a motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It's for official use only, means it's owned by the state. And anyone who's using it is officially using it for the state, not for themselves. Therefore, anytime you are going to register your car, you get a little tag in the mail, and you peel off the tag, and you're going to stick it on your car. When you get that tag, read it. Read on the tag, it says for official use only. So you're peeling it off and putting it on your car, so now your car has official use only, meaning the state owns your car. And since the state owns your car, they would like to know where their car is. So that's why once a year you have to register your car. You've got to register it to let them know where the car is, because they own the car. And incidentally, that also is why you have to have insurance and a seat belt. It's because you do not own your body. The government owns your body, in point of fact. And so your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange, and the corporation that owns you, and you are owned. There are laws that expressly say that you